There's an item that I didn't have on the agenda that I'd like to take up because the council is going to be putting together a budget, or actually they're in their process of starting. And so we want to have our committee have some funding. So Julie, Greenberg, do you want to say something?
Well, I'd like to propose that we make a formal request to the town council for $10,000, which was what they had initially considered as the amount that they would provide to the committee. It may be something that is adjusted down the road, but that we ask for that, and that we propose that this funding be used to take our survey results and provide support in a scope, a proposal that sort of scopes out where it might be possible to implement some sort of public and private cost sharing for green and gray infrastructure projects that would actually address the problems. And it's possible that there may be some Rescue Act funding available to actually implement that, whatever study arises from that examination. So I propose that the committee make that request to the town council.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Jan?
I'll second it.
So I think one of the things I think that came out of all of the work we've done so far is we can only take this to a certain point. At some point, you really need to have some expertise. And while all of us are throwing ourselves into it, I think we're quickly coming to the point where we need guidance and expertise. So that's what this is the beginning of, hopefully coming to a point where we can hire somebody who can work with us and help the community solve the problem. And also, if we do get this grant money, what would be the best way to spend the money, where we would get the biggest bang for the buck, what areas in town, and then also look into if there was some kind of cost sharing, et cetera. So Julie is now with us. Julie, Julie Greenberg made a proposal that we ask the council to include $10,000 for study money for our committee to work toward finding an organization or individual who can help us with expertise and develop a plan over the long term. And Jan seconded. So
is that beyond the time of our committee or during?
Well, I think it's just sort of some seed money to start with. Hopefully we will have, we will be involved with the council and hopefully as time goes on, more money will come our way. This is just sort of beginning seed money.
I think it's fair to say that the timing of making this request has been affected by the fact that there is potentially Rescue Act money available that for which this may be a very fitting use. And that the availability, how much money the town of Somerset's going to get and what it can be used for will be known on May 10th. And we won't have a final report until fall. So I think while we may have wanted to sort of take some more time to think about what we want to do, I think that the fact that that funding has been put on the table means that we should take advantage of, make the adjustment as necessary in what we plan to do for the best interest of the town. I mean, it would be silly not to hesitate and then not know the best use of that funding if indeed this is a very appropriate use for it.
And Julie and I have had a few discussions with people who are active in the community and who have knowledge with stormwater issues to come up with some names in organizations, and we've contacted them. We just haven't been able to set up actual meetings yet, but we think we're very close to that, where we will hopefully get some proposals and some better idea of just the magnitude of what we're talking about in terms of what a plan would cost and also what an execution of a plan would cost. So we're in the sort of fact-finding stages, just that this is happening just as the budget is coming up. So we just want to be in the budget, and hopefully things will fall into place as we proceed. So
right.
Any other?
Can I ask a question? Sorry. Would it be possible to state as the whatever recommendation or the motion that the intent and hope is that if the town gets treasury money, that would be the source, so that I guess I'm cognizant of just not adding more and more stuff to the budget. I mean, every time people talk, it's like, oh, let's just add this and this and this. So can we at least state that would be our goal, even though I understand we can't be sure that A, will get it, and B, this is what they use it for?
You mean the $10,000 or ultimately what is spent on
$10,000, Julie.
Sorry?
Right now we're just asking for $10,000.
Right, but how much is the treasury money? Is way more, I assume, or?
We don't know what that amount is and whether we'll be able to get it. Or yeah, right now it's just a $10,000 request to the town for money for our committee to start a study.
I understand.
I don't think there's any intention to be burdening the town budget. The issue is if money is available and this is an appropriate use, we want to be positioned to make use of it and not to rely on the town. That's the way I see it.
Okay, so let's vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry?
No, I chimed in later. I said aye. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Just want to take care of that. Let's move on.
Excuse me, Ellen. This is Steve Serco. Yeah, I can fully support the $10,000 budget request for the next fiscal year, and I think that the council is expecting that. But if you could provide a paragraph description of some of the activities that you intend to use that funding for, that'd be appreciated. I think that would facilitate getting the request passed.
Yeah, Steve,
just a very brief statement.
We actually may have more than a brief statement soon because we may have to.
And that's fine.
Plan. So yeah, we've been working on that.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go right into our kind of run through the presentation for next Thursday night on the 29th of the town forum. So this is a very dry run. We're going to start with the survey, which Brian and I have been spending way too much. Oh, there we go. That's funny what happened. Of our lives doing this. So he's going to begin and we will be going back and forth. So can we start? Are you ready to go, Brian?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so let's begin. And can the timer please begin?
Yeah, so we're just gonna we've got a bunch of slides here. We'll probably go through these more quickly than we would at the forum, which means we'll probably present fewer slides at the forum, but we just wanted to give you all a sense of what's here in the preliminary analysis of the survey. And Ellen and I will hand off back and forth to present some slides. Oops. So what did we actually do? I think we shared the questionnaire with the group. It was developed by the subcommittee. We did it on Google Forms. Sort of some members of the committee kind of pre-tested it. Remember, there was one response per household. We found some instances where it looked like multiple people had responded. Where we found, there's probably about a dozen cases actually, where we found those, we selected the first one. But for the most part, people stuck to one response per house. We made a decision to require the street name, but not the house number. In practice, most people did provide both, so we actually have the full address. We announced that the survey was out there via the listserv, the town email blast, so anyone who was internet connected got it that way. That opened in February. We sent a lot of reminders out. Once we had a bunch of responses, we then sent hard copies to those who had not responded. We got a few responses that way as well. And then we did the analysis all ourselves, so we didn't have any external assistance with that. I guess we'll probably save questions for the end, Ellen, rather than throughout.
Yeah, I think that's probably better, and then we'll see how long questions take.
Yeah, okay. So we had a really high response rate. We thought 56% of houses in the end responded. So that's, we were quite pleased with that. It is, you know, it's not surprisingly, I guess, perceived to be an important issue for people. 70% of respondents rated it a 4 or 5 out of 5 in importance. It affects many households. So 71% stated that stormwater runoff had affected either their house, their yard, or both. The issue is not new. So again, it was 71% again that reported that had been an issue for 5 years or more. People are spending a lot of money on it. So this was, we can't come up with a precise number because people don't have precise numbers, and we asked them to tell us a range anyway. But if you estimate that conservatively, the over 100 households that did report spending, that's estimated over $3 million in the last, I think we asked for the last 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. But in spite of that spending, very few households are actually resolving their stormwater runoff issues. So only 19% of those who took steps reported that those steps were successful. All right, who responded? And I'll just go over this quickly. I realize there's a lot of data on the screen, but the top line is that 220 out of what I count to be 396 houses, maybe it's a little more than that. I didn't include River, but that's roughly the amount. So 220 responses. The response rates across streets were pretty consistent. Fallstone and Dorset, for what it's worth, responded at a higher rate. Surrey, Uppingham, and Deal at a lower rate. And 38 of the 220 were hard copies that we had a volunteer enter for us into the database. So it was worthwhile spending the time trying to reach those extra few who didn't do it online. It's just sort of the, again, graphically what I was just showing on the previous slide. So I won't spend time on that one. And this is showing us the responses by, you know, how long people, I'm sorry, what year the house had been built. Perhaps not that informative because we don't know what % of the stock is, of the housing stock was built in what year, but a lot of people from houses built in the 1950s responding. A pretty, you know, even spread over responses by the number of years people have lived in Somerset. No particular trend there. And all right, so that's sort of the demographics. And now what did people say? What did we actually find? Am I handing this back to you, Ellen, now, or did you want me to do this one? I don't have the number of slides. I can.
Okay.
I mean,
stormwater is an important issue. Yeah, okay, that's still you.
That's still me. I mean, basically I presented this in the top line, but there you have the people who rated it a 4 or 5. Specifically the question was, how important is the issue of stormwater runoff to you? We gave a choice of 1 to 5, 5 being the most important. And so the vast majority of people did choose those 2 higher responses, 4 or 5.
Okay. I think I'm off mute, right? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
So this slide is about the perceptions of the causes of stormwater. And we had multiple things that people could check. And I went through every single response and gave people up to two or three responses. Overwhelmingly, construction was the #1 perceived cause. Changes to yards or homes near me, which also could be construction. So those two together are very significant. And then there was climate change, hills, not enough rules, and then loss of trees. I don't want to spend too much time on these. I just want people to know these are the perceptions of our community. And I think part of our goal is going to be to see what is true and what isn't true. And while there's a lot of feeling about construction and changes, when we look at the map, while I haven't put in information on new construction, the areas, a lot of the areas where there's real flooding problems, there aren't new construction anywhere near there. So it's important to take that into consideration, that this is what people feel is true. And as we look at the data and see where new construction has been or construction, we'll have a better idea as time goes on. But I just wanted to quickly go through that one. The next slide is stormwater runoff events occur frequently, which I think everybody in this town knows. And in fact, if you add up the people who say they flood 8 times a year or more, with 5 to 7 times a year, it's 33% of the respondents say that their yard floods 5 or more times a year. 30% kind of consistently say they're not affected. But and what's interesting, because as I made charts for each street, and some people report 2 to 4 times a year, but then when you look at the amount of damage and the amount of money they're spending and how their yard is perpetually wet, I think that figure is actually higher. So next slide, stormwater runoff affects 70% of respondents. Again, 30% saying they're not affected. And 38% say that they're affected both by house and yard. 25% say yard, and 7% is house only. So it's unusual just to have the house. It's usually house and yard. Next slide. How the property has been affected varies by street. Are we on that one? Yeah. I think it's hard when you get down to actual streets, because your subsets are very small and maybe somewhat misleading, but also, you know, see Deal leads the way with only like 2 people having responded. But you can see as you get further down, other streets don't find that it's as important, and because they're not as affected. Next map. This is the thing that I have been working on for a very long time. It's a map of the town, and if you see blue, it means they did not fill out the survey. And I did make a few are missing. Fallstone, you can see one area. I don't know if you can see where this is. I'm missing a few where people didn't fill out the survey, but all that is blue. If you see red, then they flood. Then they have they characterize themselves. Remember, this is what people say what their yard is. That their yard is either a 4 or a 5. Those being the highest in terms of how they perceive their yard being flooded. The orange is something that I added based on if they flooded 5 to 8 times a year, but didn't characterize themselves as a 4 or 5. I just added that in to see if that helps explain clusters. And then let's see. So if you look at the map, I think, I don't know, Brian, if you can, do we have possibilities of pointing or not? In the upper left-hand corner at the top is the bottom of Dorset, Essex, and Cumberland. And you see there's a lot of red squares there. Those are people who are experiencing a lot of flooding. In fact, you can see, and that's the south side of Dorset. I think we had 6 in a row, and then the next person meant to fill it out and tried to get it in late. They have flooding, and the next person, I don't know if they had filled it out or not, but you can see that there is a big pocket, a cluster down there. There's also at the bottom of Cumberland and the bottom of the other side of Dorset. Interestingly enough, on Cumberland Street, you have a large section where it seems to be pretty flood free. And then you get to Little Cumberland, and then you have a lot of flooding again. Then there's another cluster. I don't know if you can go down Warwick Place. Yeah, thank you. It's kind of the area of Warwick Place and Dorset. And you can see there's a pretty big cluster there. And that sort of surprised me because that's not where you think it's real hilly. But they are experiencing a lot of issues there. At the, let's see, another one is, did we do lower Essex? You can see on the, there you go. There's quite a bit of flooding there.
I didn't want to interrupt, but I actually had an observation or slash question. So you're doing it street by street, but where I live, it's kind of not street by street.
I can't hear you.
I think in the sort of, you can't hear me? Oh, shoot. You can't hear me?
Julie, you broke up a bit while you were talking. Maybe try it again, but if you can't get through that way, maybe just type it into the chat, okay, and then we could answer.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you better now.
Okay. So what I was saying, Ellen, I apologize for interrupting, but so you're looking street by street, which is really important. But I'm also just thinking, because I happen to know where I live, it's angled hill downward. And what I'm seeing is if you kind of look not so much street by street, but sort of, I can't draw it, but like if it, and I'm on sort of Trent, if it's sort of Trent, Uppingham, and
I haven't gotten there yet, Julie.
Okay, that's fine. Just to go a different, it's more not street by street.
No, that's what the point with up by Warwick and Dorset. That's Warwick and Dorset together. You know, there are hills, and there are, there's a topography here that doesn't know streets, and water is coming. You can see at the bottom of Lower Trent, there's a little cluster down at the very bottom of the map, and then above it you've got 2 other streets there that are together. But yes, we're not just looking at streets, but we're looking at streets behind streets and streets that are connected, and corner houses with other streets. So anyway, so this is the point of putting this together was to kind of find a way to begin, because if we do get some expertise, rather than have them go and look at the entire community door by door, this at least gives them a sense of where to start, where people perceive the worst problems are from their own experiences. So, okay, we can come back to the map if anyone has questions again. So,
may I just, this is also interesting, and I really appreciate everyone's efforts on this. I'm just looking at the survey, and I see, for example, I can spot my house very clearly, and I see that it doesn't look like we filled out a survey, whereas I know I filled it out online. So I'm just wondering, maybe these other numbers that you don't have were actually not tabulated.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing that up. If you see nothing there, it means they were not a 4 or a 5.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that would be interesting to see those.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to see the color, to, you know, to just give the perspective when you're looking.
Yes, the reason we did this was to find the clusters. We will also put the other information, for instance, the people who say everything is great, but I didn't want to have so many colors going on this particular map that it's hard to see where the clusters are. But you're absolutely right. We will have the other information.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's very helpful to look at, by the way. Thank you so much for doing it.
But it is possible for those who filled out a survey but did not give us their house number, then we couldn't map it, right? So, and that was, you know, less than 10% of the respondents, but, you know, that's still, you know, 15, 20 houses who did not give us their house number.
Right, but so I would just know I did. That's why I was curious as to what, I didn't want to feel like I wasn't counted. So that's why.
If somebody filled out a survey and didn't give us their address, their responses were in the overall calculation, but we really couldn't put them on the map. So there's, you know, 10% more should be somewhere in there. So
yeah, I'm just going to add that it's confusing that the people who didn't respond have a color, but some of the people who did respond don't have a color. So that you just might want to, as you're saying, to rethink that a little bit.
Well, the reason we did that is to know that we have no information on that house. But if there isn't a color, we know.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, it's just, again, I'm sorry, I don't want to repeat what Puni said.
The blue doesn't mean there's no problem going on. The blue means somebody didn't fill it out. That's all it means.
Right. It's just confusing. Like if there's no color, then it looks like no one filled it out. So it's just confusing. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
This is the first version, though. There will be.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm just, yeah.
And ultimately,
I agree with Hi. I think that it's just nothing is easier to mean nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's okay. I mean, I know that. I'm just saying going forward, you might want to rethink that, but yeah.
Okay. All right, Brian, you're on with water in the basement.
Yes, water in the basement. So we may not leave this one in, but we thought this would be interesting to people. One of the responses that people could give was whether it had affected their basement, and a surprising number. So this is of the entire sample, not just the ones who said that they were affected, but of the entire sample, 44% reported water in the basement, 44% of 220, quite a bit. I think I'm doing the next one as well, Ellen.
Yep.
And so we asked people for, you know, how long has it been an issue? Our takeaway, these are not new issues. So only, you know, 9% said it was in the last year, and only 20% said it started about 5 years ago. 39% it said it has always been a problem. This is of those who said they were affected. And 71 if you add those more than 5 years ago. So it's a long-standing issue for people, not necessarily that new, depending on what your time frame is. Back over to you, Ellen, I think.
Hey, yeah. Let's see. I think this is one of the most significant screens that we have, because 79% of the people have taken steps to solve their problem, and they're not solving the problem, which we'll see in the next slide. But it's not like people are just waiting around for somebody to take some action. People are really trying to address this issue. So only 21% have said that they haven't taken any steps. And again, this isn't people with major flooding. This is the whole community. 79% who report any problem at all have tried to fix it. Next slide. And this was a very depressing result, because only 19% have actually solved the problem. 62% have partially solved it, and 19% have absolutely not. And I didn't see much of a correlation with how much money you spent in terms of whether you solved the problem or didn't solve the problem. People are, I think, looking for ways to fix their property, and they're trying a whole lot of different things, but they're not finding success, which I think why this I think is so important is the reason I think that in many ways they're not solving the problem is that it's not something that's just occurring on their land, it's occurring on their neighbor's land and up the hill and everything. And until we try and address this as a town, people can keep spending a lot of money and they may solve a problem temporarily, but as soon as something is done differently up the hill or rains increase, the problem's not going to be, the solution is not going to last. Oh, one other thing, just as I was looking through notes, if anybody's interested, it seems like the two things that had the most impact were sump pumps and drainage for people who actually had some relief, whether it was partial or complete relief. Okay, Brian, you're next.
So again, we asked people to estimate how much they had spent on different options for addressing stormwater on their property. They could give multiple responses, and the ranges went from 0 to 20,000 for any one particular way of addressing the issue. And so we kind of added these together. Again, it's not perfect because it's ranges. And if you spent more than $20,000 on one particular method, we didn't know how much more you had spent, so we just put 20,000 in there. But you're seeing an awful lot of spending. 25 people spending more than 40,000. Conservative estimate, more than $3 million spent.
We had people, I think somebody would spend like 130,000, right, or something.
I could get you the max. Yeah, it's something like that.
So unfortunately, we're good for the economy, bad for the town, right?
Right, we know a business to go into. This is just trying to give you a sense. I realize it's quite a busy slide and you'll have time to look at these at your leisure, but the types of things that people were spending money on. So you do see a lot of spending on changing the landscaping around their house, installing drains, berms, or swales, and then gutters or downspouts. So these are loosely organized in terms of how much, from left to right, in terms of how much people were spending on different approaches. We also asked people whether they thought that the stormwater issues were affecting the home's value, the property value. And we should probably fix this slide because you don't get a sense of the overall yeses and maybes, but it does vary quite a bit by street, right? So Grantham at one end, not too concerned about their property values as they're affected by stormwater in any case. And Cumberland, Dorset seem to be more affected in terms of that, just looking at the blue bars. Was I doing this one as well, Ellen, or was this back to you?
Yeah, go ahead, that's fine.
Yeah, and this sort of goes somewhat along with what Ellen was doing on the map, but we just tried to look at like who is really the most effective and what is there a particular profile of that household that's most effective. So we looked at who rated the stormwater impacts on their property a 5 out of 5 and was affected 5 or more times a year. That turns out to be 16 houses. 6 on Dorset, 5 on Cumberland. Mostly older houses, 14 of 16 were built before 1960. Most of them report that their yards are perpetually wet. Most of them report that it's their house and their yard. Amongst these 16 households, they average spending, again, by the method we used, at least $42,000 on addressing issues in the last 5 years. And only one of the 16 reported that their issues were completely resolved. And that particular house spent more than $60,000 on basically multiple systems to address their issues.
So this, again, I don't know, want to spend too much time on it because, again, it's at the end, people could just write anything they wanted to about what they thought the town should consider in terms of finding solutions. And a lot of it was to have more rules on construction, to be more mindful of tree removal and replacement. They wanted more education and expertise, that they would have information that they could go to figure out, what were the best practices to solve the problems that they have. New rules, and these it was hard to know whether it was new rules on stormwater itself or new rules on construction. Installing more pavers and dry wells than a lot of people were for the town. You know, it doesn't look like a lot, but I was surprised how many were infrastructure, that the town should create some infrastructure in solving this problem. And then incentives and grants where there would be sort of a public-private partnership in terms of individuals solving the stormwater issues on their property. I let everybody have 2 answers. So I think that's it, right?
Yes, that's it.
So time, what do we have for a time?
So that was 26 minutes, but that includes the Q&A during the presentation,
Right?
Which was, I don't know, my rough guess would be like those 6 to 7 minutes in total. Yeah.
All right. So one of the questions I wanted to ask everybody is what you think we ought to do in terms of questions and where we should allow questions. And I know it's kind of hard to go back to slides. Any thoughts?
I would go through the presentation and then take questions afterwards.
Yeah.
Sorry, Julie.
Yeah, no, please, Ed. So I guess a couple things. One is I think you can ask people to put them in the chat. Some people may be not as facile at that, but I agree with Ed to go through the presentation. What I would suggest is, well, I guess there's both of you answering, but sometimes it's easier for one person to field the questions and one to answer, although maybe you'll both be doing both. But, you know, so they could put them in the chat and then you go through those, but then also take live ones, but that go through the presentation. I mean, we, you know, and I interrupted, I apologize, but I think it is better because otherwise you'll just get bogged down. I mean, Somerset is sort of notorious, right? So I would definitely recommend doing the presentation first. And then just in terms, I mean, it's super excellent and really informative. I think for just as an example, I'm on a small computer and others maybe because we're all at home and even though I have a monitor, I would just suggest the headings on the bottom, the axes, the headings, all be bolded. And if you can make it like one font size bigger, just for readability, and then just bold certain things, just make it a little easier to read all the, like I was really straining to see the little writing, but I really wanted to read it. And then I guess there are a couple slides more at the beginning where there's like a ton of information. And I don't know, I was trained on PowerPoint, like only put, 3 to 5 main points because you don't want someone reading instead of listening to you. So those early slides that were like the methodology, like put a few bullets and just talk them through it. The one where you did the build, where the information came one chunk by chunk, Brian, was fantastic because, you just read what you say. But, yeah, that was great. But the beginning one, it was that, and there was one other, it's like, whoa, I'm going to just sit and read and I'm not hearing you. So it just is human nature. So I just try to make less on those busy slides and then just make some of the axes and the fonts when they seem kind of small, bolder and a little bigger. That's just for eyesight issues, but otherwise fantastic.
I think, Julie, that's a good idea that maybe we could find someone who's not doing the presentation to screen questions and then at the end say so-and-so, here's a question and then we can answer them.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I've done a lot of moderating, we divvied up, like the answer is never the fielder, right? It's much easier.
Right.
I mean, I'm happy to volunteer unless someone else wants to do, that's fine. But it's up to you guys, I don't care. Right. But anyway.
All right, thanks a lot. Any other thoughts, comments on the slides, things we could delete, eliminate, confusing?
Yeah.
This one was busy, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, which ones were the kind of so what? Move on. Were there any of those that you felt?
Well, one other thing that maybe this is just me, I'm too my brain, but just putting the streets in order by alphabetical, unless they're by ranking, just because it's just a little disorienting. I don't know, maybe that's very minor, but.
I see.
I don't really
maybe the problem with this slide, for example, is that, as you said, it doesn't really give any meaningful information about, like, maybe just eliminate this one.
My suggestion is to eliminate all the slides relating to the responses by street.
Yeah.
I just don't know that that's really relevant.
Yeah, because Deal only has a few people on it, and it's just not that, it doesn't really
I mean, I guess to the extent, like I thought, the cluster analysis, anything that's giving information about clusters, I would keep. But if it's things like this, where 2 out of 2, meaning 100%, it is whatever
misleading.
Misleading, yeah. And I guess I would also, it does, even though you say it's based on the responses, it tends to start to sound like this is where it is. And so I even a couple times throughout, I would maybe just say, of the responses, because we got a great response, but there's still only half or so, or what have you, 40%. So just to make sure that people, in case someone might live somewhere that's terrible, but it wasn't on there because maybe they didn't get responses or something. But so just maybe mention that a couple times, I guess.
I just wanted to add what Julie just said, and this is, I think you guys know this, but I'm guessing that the people who responded had more issues than the people who didn't respond. I mean, so in overall, if you look at the people who didn't respond, there's probably less issues for them, fewer issues than the other people. So I'm just saying it is a misleading, you did the best you could and that's okay, but just be sure when you're presenting it, it's just based on people who responded, which was probably, I can't think of the word.
It's not a random sample.
Yeah, it's not a random sample.
There's bias.
It's a biased sample.
Which it could also be people who don't have little kids who are they're not quite as insanely busy and had time to fill out a survey or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's really it's still really useful information. It doesn't really matter. It's still super useful, but you just have to keep that in mind. Yeah.
But one thing I think you would be surprised at how many people who were not personally affected still thought it was a very important issue. It really was surprising. And, you look at 30% of the people still filled it out, even though their own property was not affected.
Right.
So, but yeah.
I just want to say, I think the quality of the data, well, recognizing, the limitations that inevitably flow from not getting closer to 100% of the population that responded, but still the quality of data, I think, is really, really good. And it seems like this is really valuable information. And I have to also give you both credit for the presentation. It's maybe some tweaks here and there, but I thought it was terrific. And in terms of, my vote, but this is the way I do presentation, my vote is to always not worry so much about the number of slides, but, be committed to getting through them and saying no more than you really need to say and not get bogged down. Yeah, dropping those that are street specific makes some sense to me, but I wouldn't be too focused on the number of slides that you have in here, especially if they're going to be circulated and made available to people, because I think it's good information.
Okay.
Yeah, and are you planning to give a bigger deck, but then the presentation is excerpted from it? Is that the thinking, or?
Not really. I think, we're going to have a report which will have all this in it, but I think it is what it is. This is.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
Well, the report could just be the expanded deck. In fact, we're already in, this deck is actually 3 slides longer. We're hiding 3 of them from you already. So yeah, we could present a subset of them to be able to talk about them, and then offer a larger set to people if they want to go through them on their own. Try to make them self-explanatory. Most of them are pretty simple, like this one, right?
Right.
I think
along with that, I was just wondering, and this is for the forum on a whole, because we were talking about this for our subcommittee presentation. Are these slides going to be posted somewhere so people can go back and look at them, like on the town website?
The idea is we're going to have a report which will include these slides, and that it will be available on the town website.
But before the final report.
Oh, yeah. This is.
Oh, okay. So just after the forum, you're going to.
No, there's going to be a report on the survey.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think it's fabulous. I think it's really interesting, the information you got. And I thought the map, I know it was really time consuming, but it was really,
is that a map with Post-its, dare I ask?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that a map with Post-its, dare I ask, or is that software?
Yeah, let's see, Ellen. It looks like it's a big thing that you took a picture of.
It's
yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
It's 8 feet by 12 feet in Ellen's basement.
Old school.
Oh,
great,
my
Ellen.
God.
Yeah, the whole family working on it with lard. Yeah.
No, I wish. No, it.
Wow.
Actually, cut up little Post-its, but I used tape because I was afraid what would happen is that the thing would disappear on
Maybe
me.
there's just no more colors of Post-its. That's why you couldn't put the last one. I'm just kidding.
No, I was headed that way, but was reminded by a couple people that it was better to be able to blur your eyes and see where the problem is.
No, I'm
just looking for the bright color. That's sort of where it will guide you. Anyway, thank you. That feedback was great. We will.
One last question, just about if people who did not fill the survey out and then see this and said, oh, I want to get my input, will they be allowed to fill the survey out later if they ask you?
You know, I don't know I mean, I think the purpose of this was to have the beginnings of clusters. And I think that because you have the initial identification, you can kind of move up the street or look around, if you see a little cluster, you could contact the people and say, are you also having problems? I think that's probably, it took a lot to get people.
That's fine. No, I was just thinking if that question comes up.
Yeah. But I think when you have, 5 houses in a row and then 2, they didn't fill it out. And then another one, you probably should go hit the 2 people who didn't fill it out to see where it all begins.
Great.
The other side of, I live on Dorset, and the other side is just, they couldn't wait to fill it out. It was from here to here. And the thing that's surprising is, as a person who lives on the bottom of the hill, I used to drive around Somerset and be envious of the people up, higher up the hill. And then I found out a lot of those people up the top of the hill are having issues as well. So it's not just the people at the bottom of the hill.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to say though that I did notice you were saying, those clusters were at the bottom of the hill, like on Cumberland and Dorset and Essex. Those are at the bottom of a hill, right?
Yeah.
And also you said you didn't know about what was going on in Essex and Warwick, but that's a trough there. I've been riding my bike around town, so I know there's like a little trough there. Anyway.
Yeah, and there's. You think that you're seeing an area that's pretty flat, and it isn't, or there's something sloping on the back.
Yeah. Anyway,
everything's connected. Okay, so now we're. Hold on a second. I have to go to my down here. Alrighty, sorry. All right, now we're going to have other impacts, the tree study with Julie Abrams and Brian Smith again.
Okay, so Brian, we were not as organized as the 2 of you, so we didn't say who will do what. And Brian, I added some things since you added your original amazing things. So I don't know, it's up to you how you want to do this. And we will rehearse and be very on top of things before next week, believe me. So just so you know, with the tree database, it's now at 1,076 trees, but there's about 18 months of manual tree journals that I'm got from Matt that still are going to be entered. So it's probably going to be 1,200, 1,500 tree removals over the 10 years, just FYI. So, yeah. So these numbers will increase, I guess, is my short point. So,
okay.
So Brian, you want to take it away for starters, I guess?
Or, yeah.
You want to go?
Yeah. Yep, that sounds good. Definitely not as polished here. And so, Julie, please just jump in if I'm leaving stuff off. So this was our methodology. So we basically got data from 2 different sources on tree removal. So one was related to new construction. And for that, Matt gave us scans basically of all of the tree removal permits covering from 2010 to mid 2020 that were related to new construction. We sort of realized late in the process that 2018 is probably missing. There aren't any entries from 2018. It seems unlikely that there was no new construction in 2018.
And I was seeing entries about 2018 for new construction in the journals when I was looking for other things. So that's how we kind of realized. So.
Yeah. So there's something.
You won't go into gory detail for the regular folks. Just this is for internal, right?
And we should be able to get that cleaned up pretty quickly. And so anyway, that roughly covers 140 months, excluding 2018 then. And then for the tree removals not related to new construction, Julie painstakingly went through literally mountains of town journals where all of these are recorded. And it covers 2010 to the present, although as of this afternoon, about 18 months, I think, Julie, had still not been.
Yeah, no, I have them. I have electronic versions of the ones Matt had to send me that I didn't have paper copies of. Again, we won't go in this detail for the real people. You're not real, but you know what I mean? Yeah.
It ends up being roughly the same number of months. That last bullet, do you want to explain that, Julie? The last bullet?
Yeah, and this, I think we need to follow up on this. So I was ignoring new construction, just focusing on everything else. But then as I was looking through the journal, and this is just so you guys all know, the two places this information is of tree removals are twofold. One is in the permit section and then council action section. And there's reasons why certain ones are in one or the other. But anyway, it took me a while to realize there were two places, so I had to retrace my steps. But what I was noticing when I was looking through for removals is sometimes I'd see a removal that wasn't a new construction, but it wasn't like the tree died. It was sort of, I don't know if the word is renovation, home modification, something that wasn't a new home, but some alteration of the home or property that caused them to remove trees. And we hadn't asked for that separately. And I don't know where one would find it. I wasn't looking for those. So I'm a little concerned that we've basically just totally missed that category. And I think there probably are some. So Brian, I guess we need to suss this out with Matt and figure out where is that a category of papers they have somewhere to get, such as those scans, or if I have to like relook through every of the 140 months of town journals, which I don't really want to do. Yeah.
So, I mean, a takeaway that we won't share in the forum is that the record keeping on this is not great. As you're hearing from us, and we can make some recommendations to the town to how to keep this up to date. The database that we've been building out is basically just a Google sheet, but it's something that could be kept up to date relatively easily, and then we'd have this information going forward.
Right. But I guess sorry, Brian, just so you totally agree on that. And it is straightforward. One of the things we didn't have, which I think we also want to recommend, which isn't our purview, but it's relevant to the town, is that they should keep records of easy to find of the permits that approved removals, but they couldn't find tree permit records for us. That's why we're doing all this insane, manual stuff. So I think and Matt said, yeah, we have to have record retention policy. It's not retention policy. They didn't know where they were. So they need to keep track of their records. I know it sounds unbelievably basic and pathetic, but I've been kind of shocked, honestly. So, I think that's a recommendation, keep records, electronics fine, but you need to be able to find things like this, so.
For this slide, so the top line findings again, and I like the feedback that I think you gave, Julie, that this could be done bullet by bullet when we present it. So far, over 1,000 trees documented. So that's like 9 to 10 trees per month, 100 per year, something like that. Important finding, only 18% of the removals are actually related to new construction. So the vast majority of these are other removals for other reasons. Of the ones that are for new construction, about 80% are supposed to be replaced. I'll come back to what we mean by that in a second. 68% of the trees removed for new construction were classified as quote unquote not healthy. And I'll give some more detail on that as well. But the permits actually list the sort of the state that the tree is in. And many of those perhaps should have been removed anyway. We'll come back to that. 25 new constructions over the period that we looked at, though maybe 2018 is missing. And so we're not 100% confident in that number. And it's an important one. So we'll do our best to figure out exactly what the right number is. Julie, you want to add anything on this slide before I go forward?
No, I mean, I think you said we're going to come back to the issues. Yeah.
All right. We'll come back to that. So the finding is no finding here, so maybe we kill this slide. But basically, I wanted to show you what it looked like year on year. There's no actual trend here. It's not like it's trending up or down dramatically. The reason 2021 is low is just because it's a partial year and we don't have the new construction in there. So it's sort of even.
And we're going to try to get new construction through the same time through today, right?
Right. Yeah, and then 2018, as I said, is missing. That's why there's no red bar there.
I think the other point, sorry, just to go back to that one, the other point you may want to flag is you said there aren't trends, but the trend, and if you look at just total trees, is that every year trees are removed, which is going to be a bigger one of the takeaways for implications when we link it back to stormwater.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned as well, one thing we tried to get, again, this won't be in the forum, or maybe not in this forum, in the forum next week, but it would be nice to know what our tree stock is in town. Like, is 1,000 a lot? It sure sounds like a lot. Then again, as Julie pointed out, we're not living in a sort of desert wasteland right now, so there's still a lot of trees out there. We've asked to try to get a sense of even just how many town trees there are, let alone how many, what the total stock is, and we don't have an answer on that.
Yeah, so Robin Barr definitely doesn't know, and he heads the environmental committee. I'm not sure the exact name of it. Julie, you probably know. And then I've asked Dr. Feather both how many in town, to Brian's point, how many are town-owned trees are tagged, and actually there's a bunch of town trees which aren't tagged, I learned. But then, and if Dr. Feather has any estimate of number of trees in town, he very well may not, but he might, so we'll see.
Excluding parkland, like if there were 10 trees on every house, that in every property, that would be 4,000. If there were 20 trees, that would be 8,000. I have no idea whether that's right, but just order of magnitude.
Yeah, and some of the trees that were being I'm just telling you guys, but again, not for this group. So some of the trees that were removed were parkland. So I think that would be part of our stock, just FYI.
And so this is just illustrating what was in the top line there, that most of the trees that are removed are not because of new construction. So 82% for other reasons. With respect to new construction, so here we're talking about roughly 200 trees. The tree removal permit tells the builder, tells the homeowner whether they're supposed to replace the trees. And in most cases, they are meant to be replaced, and you're supposed to pay a bond for that. It's not 100% clear whether all of those have been replaced or not. Asking the town, again, they don't have great records on whether all these bonds have been paid back, right? So you pay the town, then the town pays you back when they verify that you've planted your tree. They don't have a lot of outstanding bond money. On the other hand, I don't think they track it in the budget. Maybe one of the council members could.
They actually don't. I chatted with Barbara Zughauser when she was walking her dog about that. And it is not a line item in the budget, and they have no tracking of it. So, I mean, when we say we think they are, no idea.
Julie, you're going in and out.
Haven't, because there's just no tracking. Oh, sorry.
Julie, it's really hard. You keep going in and out. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So yeah, I mean, I think Julie is just pointing out that it's difficult to track this as well because the town.
Is that better?
Go ahead, Julie.
Oh, is that better? I just meant my sound.
I think so. You're not breaking up now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Well, you were talking about the challenge of getting the.
Oh yeah, that just. I mean, yeah. There isn't. It's not a line item in a budget. So in a budget, if it's not tracked as a line, you don't have any way of disaggregating it for obvious reasons. And then I don't think there's any follow up. I mean, if they didn't know where the permits were and when trees are removed and don't have those records, you can imagine there aren't records of where these were placed. So there, because to Brian's point, trees are supposed to be replaced for construction. Also, I believe, and Julie, you know even more about this than I do, Julie G. If you remove 3 trees or more, then you are supposed to replace them. And in many cases, it said what was going to be replaced, but there was no follow-up. So, you know, it's kind of a black hole, frankly. So.
Also on the tree permits for new construction, they say something about the health of the tree, the status of the tree. And if you look at the bottom of this slide, they'll use words like it's damaged or hazardous or dead or 50% dead, which is an interesting one, in decline, in poor condition, that kind of thing. So, you know, this is not technical language, but when those things were listed that way, just call them not healthy versus healthy. More than 2/3 of them had some sort of disclaimer about the quality of the tree, which makes you wonder about whether that tree should have been replaced anyway. And if it was replaced, are we actually upgrading the stock of trees as we do new construction, because they're sort of unhealthy ones taken down and many healthy ones replaced?
Yeah, so I had a sort of different take, and Brian, we can talk so this is smoother. And also, we're telling you guys a lot more than it'll be much more pared down, needless to say. I mean, I guess I wondered, it just seems like sort of a, not just a surprising number of unhealthy trees. I kind of wonder, and I know, you know, obviously we have someone very ethical who's doing all the tree reviews. It just sounded a little too convenient to me. And I don't know what that, you know, what to do with that thinking, but I guess I'm not sure I would, you know, assume, oh, construction is actually great for our tree population as a takeaway from this. I don't know what people, you know, you guys can.
Yeah, let's come back to that because
yeah, exactly.
Why don't you take it from here, Julie?
Sure. So, we, just to be clear, there is information in the town journals about tree plantings. I don't know if it's exhaustive because I'm not unclear about that, but I didn't input that because, as you can see, I'm still inputting the removals, but there is information. One could do that. The town could do that, but just anecdotally from when I saw replacements, and when I say replacements, it wasn't ever, oh, you remove these trees, replace this. It's just the town planted 10 trees or Pepco gave us 10 trees kind of things. But take big picture, the tree replacements are likely only a fraction of tree removals. And when I hear from Dr. Feather, I can just make sure I corroborate that. And this is very anecdotal. So as I said, the tree planting data exists, but it'd have to be inputted, analyzed. So of course, and this is maybe obvious, but I think we're stating new tree plantings will be smaller, such as saplings or you know, less mature trees. And they're, you know, by definition, replacing mature older trees, which have larger trunks and roots. I only mention that because that's going to have implications when we link this back to stormwater. And as Brian and I already said, the town of Somerset, and here we could just say it here and not go into the detail we did with you all, that there is no system in tracking whether required replacement tree planting occurs or not, just period. So then we get into, okay, well, this is all fascinating, interesting. What does it have to do with stormwater? So, I mean, this is a slide and from the great fellow that Julie had brought in March, and I'm blanking on his name, but we'll acknowledge it publicly. Thank you, right. But anyway, I literally, you know, took it from there, and I'll give credit for that. But it's not your imagination. There is more frequency and intensity of rain, and he, you know, gives us really nice slides. So just to know people are not imagining this. So the next slide. So now what is the connection between our tree population and stormwater? And I'm trying to get hard facts. I've got some not anecdotal, but I'm trying to get more substantive information. But basically, trees serve two, you know, really important purposes specific to stormwater. One is that the tree roots absorb water, and the larger the tree trunk diameter, which of course is related to, you know, its root system size, the more water the tree absorbs. And then secondly, and also beneficially, a tree's leafy canopies absorb stormwater and they slow its descent to the ground. So it's you know, the tops and the bottoms are both beneficial to stormwater. So that's just conceptually. And then next slide. So I did get a couple of data points of how to calculate this kind of impact of it. One, and I'm trying to corroborate this, but I believe this is a good one, is that every inch of tree trunk diameter, that's the way that's measured. It's not the tree trunk itself, but that's how you do the metrics, absorbs an estimated 10 gallons of water per week. So if we currently have those, so now what I'm looking at is all these trees we've lost, that what the stormwater absorption capacity we've lost. And this is sort of contributing, you know, the various issues we have with stormwater, right? That's the link here. So this 1,079 trees, which that number will be bigger as soon as we get the final data in there. And then not all trees, about 43% of the trees that were removed had a reported diameter. Those are all input in our database. Of those, the average diameter was 16 inches. I don't know if that's a good number or not. I'll you know, stress test that with Dr. Feather, but that's just to give, that's actual data points. So then if we multiply the trees removed, so this is foregone stormwater absorption, times that 16-inch diameter times 10 gallons, that's per week. This is the amount of gallons per week of foregone stormwater absorption just from the roots, not slowing it down from the canopy, as I'd mentioned. And then if you just multiply all that on a yearly basis, you get 8.9 million. So practically 9 million gallons of water that those tree roots could have absorbed. So you just start to see the value. I mean, I was kind of shocked. It was like, wow, this is a lot of water that we could absorb some of it. That's not to say plant a bunch of trees, we're done, not clearly, but I'm guessing, I don't know, we don't have our recommendations yet, but it seems like stormwater has to be addressed, full court press in many facets in many ways. And trees are sort of an obvious one with other benefits as well. And we'll be talking about the other benefits of trees, not in this forum, but in our final report. Next slide. And then the tree canopy that I mentioned, and if you think of it, if you've got, and you've probably seen it, if you're under a tree and you're not worried about lightning and thunder being struck, that it does absorb the rain and slows it and holds it, some of it, or slows it down. And so the more of a canopy a tree provides, the better it is having that function. So there was one study I was able to find that estimated about 7 to 12% runoff reduction as a result of tree canopy coverage. I've got the paper, I was trying to read through it. And again, so this isn't the water, some will stay in the canopy, some will still go down to the ground. But if we lived in the Amazon jungle, there might be a lot less rain going immediately to the ground for, kind of obvious reasons of gravity, that kind of thing. So next slide. And so, so then I'm trying to link here, what happened, what kind of tree removals we had and why, what are some of the benefits of trees for absorbing stormwater, and then what are linking those two concepts are tree inventory or a tree removal inventory, it's not inventory, implications for stormwater. So what we found, and as Brian was mentioning, so the main reasons for other than construction. So these are what I'd call the unavoidable reasons for tree removals: death of the tree, a disease of the tree. They were considered in certain times hazardous to people or property. Maybe they were leaning over the house, over the roof, et cetera. There were a number of them removed hazardous to utility infrastructure. PEPCO had requested a number of removals. And I personally, since I've lived here, we have so many fewer power outages that I think that actually worked. And so those, there are going to be the many unavoidable tree removals, and that's a natural phenomenon, and then also partly man-made, people-made. And then every tree, as we mentioned, both in the roots and the canopy, absorbs water in different ways. And so I guess, and I don't know, Ellen, maybe we don't want to go this far along, but it strikes me that there are going to be quite a number of trees, maybe up to say 100 a year, that we cannot avoid removing them. And so, it just strikes me that do we want to try to be stricter about not removing trees that are electively removed for cosmetic or other reasons, because there's this population, we can't control the removal. And so, that's just sort of food for thought. So, and I think, was that the last slide? I think, Brian? Brian, was that the last slide? Yeah.
Yes, I believe it was.
So anyway, so again, we'll have a few more data points, but it's just going to be more numbers of more of the information, and then answering some of the questions we have pending with Matt or Dr. Feather. So, but happy to hear folks' comments and questions and criticisms, and any way to make this better. I was telling you guys a lot more. It'll be much more cold, I think, and high level for the bigger audience than you all.
Okay, and what's the time for that presentation?
19 minutes.
Oh, all right. I have a couple questions.
What do we have booked for it, Ellen? I wasn't sure. Or what should it be at? I guess what's the goal time?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I know it'll be shorter because you were discussing what to discuss. But a question that I have is when, which I should know and I don't. If someone does a renovation and they take down trees, is there a responsibility to replace the trees that they took down for a renovation, or is it only new construction?
So my understanding, and Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, so new construction is one thing, but then I believe if you remove 3 or more trees, you're supposed to have a replacement plan. But then the renovation as a category, I don't know, because we weren't even told that's a category, but I think it is, and we need to figure out if we've missed some. So it's a good question, and I don't know the answer.
Is Matt on the call?
I think he wrote something early in the chat saying you're in good hands with Ellen. Goodbye. So yeah.
Could you check that out and find out whether that is a category? And then the other thing that sort of struck me is we're keeping track of trees that are removed, and I was struck by how many trees were removed in our survey due to water, but there's no mechanism for capturing how many trees are planted, right? I mean, if somebody is redoing their backyard and they're putting in trees, they're not taking trees down, they could be planting 5 trees and the town doesn't know it, right?
Right. I mean, we're not keeping track of tree flows at all in any direction. This is the most that's been done ever, and it's just because a bunch of us are doing it, right? So correct, that's right. So if they're just electively, I think you need permission to plant a tree? I think so.
You don't.
Oh, you don't?
Not unless it's on town land. Yeah.
So that's a good point, Ellen. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff we don't know. And I don't know, again, does that mean, I mean, I don't want to just say like, make everything a new rule, but I mean, it would be helpful to know. I mean, if we do a tree inventory, then we'll know, but then how would we know those kind of the changes like that, right? So
I'm thinking it was maybe something the town could try and do is do a, just like they have a bird census, some weekend do a tree census.
No, I think Robin Barr is extremely keen. I think it could be done. I don't think he was like hire. I mean, I think it could be done voluntarily, and just as long as people don't mind someone going in their backyard or something, just count. I mean, what I don't know, for example, I mean, I've learned so much about tree species. You wouldn't believe how many tree species we have. But I don't know if we need to know species. I don't personally need to know the species. I think we just need to know numbers. But I mean, what do I know?
Well, I think there's certain canopy trees that the town tries to promote the plant because they solve more of our issues. Right.
Yeah.
Can I come in here?
Sure.
I'm really, I like what you did in this. It's a lot of really interesting data about the trees, but I really feel like overall, we're losing this many trees a year. I don't even know what that means. I mean, maybe we've lost that many trees a year for the last 50 years. And maybe the trees are replenishing. Like, I don't know what it means. Is there a sense that there's fewer trees in the town than there were? It just, and without knowing the size of the trees, which you probably have some idea, it's not really hard data in some sense. Do you know what I'm saying?
So Julie, we had looked at some, and you probably looked more than I did, of time series topographical or geospatial maps, I think, but we couldn't quite figure out because that is an excellent question. Like, is it sparse?
That's a good thing to look at, yeah.
Right. I tried to look, I couldn't quite figure it out. And Julie, I don't know if you had any better luck.
No, the aerial photographs they're taken at different seasons. So sometimes the trees have leaves and sometimes they don't. And so it's very hard to tell what's happening with the tree canopy.
Yeah.
And they go back, I mean, if they were good, they go back 50 years and that would be very useful, but they don't.
So what would be good to have? Sorry, Brett. I
agree with that comment. It's hard, which is why we're asking, like, does the town have any data on the total stock?
Yeah. How many trees are there in the town?
And then you'd want to know the lifespan of a, quote unquote typical tree, all stuff that perhaps is knowable. Right. I guess one takeaway that does come out from me, maybe we don't all agree on it, is if you thought that new construction was driving the sort of changes in our tree stock in a negative way, the data does not seem to support that for various reasons. So at least there's that for me.
I believe that.
Yeah. But Haya, I think it is possible to provide a sort of, to speculate sort of on what is the number of trees on our private lots, not the parkland. And I think what Brian said is, let's imagine there's 10 trees on every lot, which is, I think, a lot of trees.
Right.
But averaging, because that's, there are some very large lots with lots of trees. Well, that is 4,000 trees. So losing 1,000 when you have 4,000.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of trees. And I think
that's over 10 years.
Useful to
that's over 10 years, though. It isn't a year.
I just can't remember. Yeah.
But no, it's 100 a year. So that's, we can.
It's just really hard to I don't know how to analyze this data or to really.
I'll try to talk to, no, I think I totally agree. I'll try to talk to Dr. Feather. I mean, is there any particular thing, and again, maybe anecdotal,
does he have any sense that there are fewer trees now than before, that we're losing trees at a faster rate than we're replacing them? That would be one thing I want to ask him. And
yeah.
Get the Tree City designation.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, I Googled it because I was like, oh my God, maybe we're not eligible anymore with, losing so many trees. Literally, I'm typing, but it just means you have a tree policy. You spend a little bit of money in your town budget for trees. It's actually a really low bar, believe it. We still qualify. I was sort of like, oh, that's kind of lame, right. But anyway.
So yeah, so like
I have just one thing on the presentation. I thought it was fabulous, but I think when you jump right in it, I might like to see, and this is just my opinion and other people, maybe the slide that you showed why trees are important.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
like flip it
when you get into the
so
data
flip it.
I love that.
I think
that's a great idea.
We've been talking about it so much. We think trees are important. And I know when I started this committee, I thought, why are we talking about trees? What does that have to do with anything? So
okay, no, that's a super idea. Yeah,
I think you should stress that more and worry less about the numbers because we're not sure what that means. I guess the question for Dr. Feather would be, is the tree loss accelerating? That's the right question.
Right.
That's the question. Anyway.
So, no, I'll definitely ask that. So my hypothesis, and I have no idea because what do I know? And I would definitely ask him, is maybe that because it's, for the slide Brian made, it's sort of a steady thrum. So I guess to me, it means if it's a steady thrum, if for general environmental reasons and also stormwater absorption reasons, we want to make sure we're emphasizing planting and then following up, making sure people are planting, and then also not having, extra elective trees removed just because we're already going to, if you think of this as like a forest, trees die and then they rejuvenate. But in this, where we are, nothing's just going to grow by itself. We have to take action to plant it. So that's different than a forest, right? So those are what I sort of took from this.
Yeah. Am I correct in saying that we really don't know what's been replaced and what hasn't? So we're saying we're losing 100 a year, but we don't know we're planting.
I saw certain data, but honestly, I've been entering it's unbelievable.
No, it's fine, and I'm happy to help you. I'm just saying we know that we're losing 100 a year, but we don't know how many are.
No, and maybe Dr. Feather anecdotally could tell me. For example, Matt doesn't know. Nobody in town knows any of this, honestly. Yeah. And were you trying to say something?
I was gonna just suggest one thing I'm interested in is whether there's also a kind of a reverse effect here of rainwater on trees. I know we recently had to take down a huge tree in our backyard. And it's because the roots were rotting, and we had, I forget his name, the guy who comes around and look at it. And the reason we knew there was a problem is all of a sudden there were these giant spores growing up around the roots of the tree. And so he checked it out and he said, yeah, you've lost a lot of roots from rot. And so I'd be interested to know, is it possible that our issues with stormwater are actually contributing to the loss of trees?
Okay, I can ask Dr. I have no way of knowing, but I can certainly ask Dr. Feather. And I guess he probably does have a sense of this, he lives and breathes this stuff. And by the way, I think someone mentioned this earlier on, but he also works for Town of Chevy Chase, which I know has some interesting regulations we're looking at and on our subcommittee. So he's sort of interesting go-to guy for, potential various things.
That's good.
Julie, even, we're not sure what the numbers mean, but I think it's the point that Jan was saying is really important. Like, trees are really good. They help stormwater runoff. So I think that should be the main takeaway from this.
Okay.
And it can only help.
Okay, so can we also consider a recommendation to do an inventory, a census of the trees in the town so that we start?
Yeah,
anecdotally, I lost 2 older, very nice trees totally from water. Then that's what Chris told me.
You did too. Yeah.
So that's like what Ed said. Yeah.
And there are people in the storm study who cited the fact that they lost trees due to water.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You said there was anecdotes of that? Okay, but not.
We actually asked that question. We can do actual hard numbers of people who lost.
Oh, that would actually might be interesting to throw in here, right? To our like that info for this slide. So, what I know we don't have planting information, but how should we handle that? Just say it's available if someone wants to look at that, because I don't know quite what to do with that fact that we don't know, because, you know, if 90% will be replacing, it's not ideal because they're smaller and less mature, but it's certainly really good. But I don't know. I don't think we have that. So I don't know. I guess I'll just say it's another unknown. So.
Yeah, I think it's a great start. And I think the answer is, what's the town going to do with this information, and how do we do an inventory so we know what's being replaced and what isn't being replaced, what we're losing due to, I think it'd be, you know, somebody has to approve a tree being taken down for a reason. Do they not say, you know, water damage or, you know?
So in the town journal, often they said the reason, but many times they didn't. And again, I don't know if on the permit form, maybe they did, or maybe Dr. Featherwright's report, but somehow that's the information the town doesn't know where it is. So
that's important information the town should be maintaining.
That is a strong recommendation. I will definitely be happy to put in the final report.
Julie, you've done an amazing job on collecting this. I mean, I think this was above and beyond what you signed up for.
I mean, well, so we originally...
And if you need help, I mean, with data entry, I mean,
okay,
now that you're done, I'm going to volunteer.
Well, I have 18 months to enter. But we were talking about having a high school student, but honestly, for this stuff, there were a lot of judgment calls, and it was in different places, buried. You had to peruse 2 parts of, 140 town journals. So honestly, I don't know that a high school student would have necessarily done things. But anyway, I'm sorry it's late. It was supposed to have been done long ago. Yeah, but anyway, so my committee members have been very patient with me, very kindly. So.
Well, thank you. So we don't have, we're almost to 9 o'clock. So let's move on to Julie for construction impacts.
Yeah, this is very short. So. Okay, so this is where it really starts. The plan here is to give some sense to people of the scale of addition and construction that is the type they notice, those, demolition and rebuilds, as well as smaller development. So this shows for the 20 years how many of the lots in Somerset had construction, no construction or addition at all. That's 41%. And then these are small, very small developments. This may not even, maybe something in the backyard that no one even sees, 1 to 400 feet, that's 19%. And so when you put those two together, what we have is 40% of the lots in town had construction of 400 square feet, or addition construction of 400 square feet or above. And then that 14% that you see at the upper left, those are the new homes or the demolition rebuilds that are the ones that people sort of pay attention to. So it's really 14% of the total number of lots where there's construction. So I think the point here is there's more than meets the eye in terms of where there's actual possible addition of the type of impervious surface that could add to runoff if it isn't controlled in some way. Now, here are some observations from that. We don't know what happened before 2000 because the database that Montgomery County offers doesn't provide it. As I said, 40% of households had that sort of 400 square feet or greater building permit. There may have been a slight increase in the square feet of addition construction, the average from 3,100 from 2000 to 2005, and then 4,300 from 2015 to 2020. But unfortunately, we cannot look at this and say that there was what amount of impervious area was added, patios or additional roof area or whatever in all of this. What I think it sort of comes out, there was a lot of activity here going on that could have added impervious surface. So our next steps, by the next town forum, we will have much more information on building permits, the larger ones and the smaller ones, both to say how much impervious surface might have been added, and also to say what was done in terms of sediment control permits, which require retention of runoff, or drainage plans, which try to protect neighbors from increases in runoff. We will have a report on the best practice interviews we've done with Somerset residents who did those larger developments, got a sediment control permit, and actually retained or stored all the runoff that they were supposed to. They did not get a partial waiver. And the third thing is we'll have completed the calculations that support a surprise that it's not actually the case that total or overland runoff necessarily increases when an older home is replaced by a newer and larger home. We have to consider how much of the runoff from the roof in the older home used to be sort of taken out of sight, out of mind into a storm sewer. And we also have to consider how much of the runoff in the newer home is being stored on site as regulations demand. So that's what there is on development. I wish you were possible to talk more about the increases in impervious surface, but it's just impossible with the data we have.
And the time on that was like 6 minutes?
No,
Julie.
4 minutes and 40 seconds.
Julie, you win. You win.
Succinct, Julie. That's great. Terrific. Thank you. Any questions or any comments before we move to the?
I thought it was great. I think one thing that I know only because I've heard you a lot, but that if I didn't, I wouldn't realize is this concept that the old homes always, they get the, as you said, out of sight, out of mind, the storm, through to the storm sewers, whereas new construction must, unless they get a waiver, dispose of it, so to speak. That's something I only know now, but I would have no clue. So maybe explain that earlier on to contextualize maybe would be, I think, helpful.
Well, this gets into the issue of do we want to deal with construction? My thought on just even having this information, and I hope to have more that sort of outline the impervious surface, so I'm sort of disappointed about that, is just to convey that 14% is what people are focused on, but there's a lot of other construction and addition going on. And that sort of sets the stage for us to begin to take away from this perception that was clear in the survey that construction is the problem. Mm-hmm. And maybe I
think you can almost say that, Julie, just in the sentence like you did, that we all, just what you said, that we all in the beginning felt like it was new construction, but as we've gone through this, we found that it isn't necessarily just new construction.
So maybe I should tie directly to the survey result.
Yeah.
Connect that and say, as you already heard in the survey, there is a very, sort of dominant perception that construction is the source of runoff.
But that's not,
But that is not necessarily the case, and we will go into this a lot more in the next.
And people will be shocked to hear Julie Greenberg say that.
Right. But Julie, in terms of impervious surfaces, I understand you don't have data, but I think it's actually good to raise that it's, and you know this again better than I do, if it's not captured or tracked or required that there are limits on it, but that I think we do want to raise the fact that when there are impervious surfaces, and I think this is intuitive, water must go elsewhere, it cannot sink into that ground. And so the fact that whether it's tracked or not, regulated or not, it's an important, impervious surfaces are an important issue that we are looking at for stormwater reasons, because it's important, and there may be implications for that. So I think without even data, I think just discussing that. I mean, we're all thinking about this stuff, but before I was on this committee, I wasn't sitting around thinking about that stuff. But when you say it, it's like, oh yeah, that it's really obvious. So here's a selfish question. The data about the non-new construction, all the renovations, et cetera, on your pretty pie chart, where did you get that? Because that's, I think, what we're missing for tree data, but if it's from the county, maybe that wouldn't help us. So
it's really, I was going to write you an email about this after the
meeting.
And I think we're just going to have to do that and talk about it. It's a really gray area because there is no clear definition of what is there's clear demolition rebuild, and then there's this new home category where you don't, you still need a sediment control permit, but it doesn't fall into the same category. It's really a very, very confusing area, but I do believe you're right that you are missing some new homes. And I think I have that. I think I pulled those from the Montgomery County database, and I think we can identify the addresses, and maybe that will help us fill in the blanks on the trees.
Okay.
But I don't think these are clearly sort of categorized.
Okay, that's helpful, yeah.
It's only the demolition rebuilds that I got information from Matt on for the trees.
Okay.
Now there are 4 or 5 new homes in the data I got from Montgomery County, and I think that's a missing piece you need.
Julie, I don't know if things have changed, but I know at the time when we built our house in 2004, had we just maintained the front of the house, it was not considered new construction. Like if you take a portion, not only that,
I think it's somewhat the same because people who just maintain 2 inches of the foundation, even though they rebuild the whole house, it's not considered.
Yeah, so this is right for the Rules and Regs Committee, right, Ed?
Okay. Julie, I have one more comment for you. When you mentioned the older houses and you said that it's connected to the storm sewers, so we don't see it. I could maybe add, and that's no longer allowed before whatever reason.
For new homes.
That's now
for new homes, yeah. Right? Yeah, and I guess just in terms of the slides, the same thing I was saying for all of them. Again, because I'm on a small computer, just fewer bullets and bigger font and bolder, for important things, just for visual. Because maybe others are going to be on a tiny computer like me or have terrible eyesight like me. So.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Okay.
Okay, next is Haya.
Okay, let me pull this up. Oh dear, share screen. There we go. There. Okay. All right. I'm going to be talking about the history of rainscapes in Somerset. So let me just start to explain to people what Rainscapes is. So Rainscapes is a Montgomery County program that's inside of the Department of Environmental Protection. And it provides technical assistance to property owners who want to control stormwater on their property. And we're going to be talking about rain gardens, conservation gardens, permeable pavers, and there's also other things such as rain barrels and cisterns, but we're just going to be focusing on that in this. So this is something that Somerset has worked with Rainscapes in the, I'm not saying this very well. Maybe I won't mention that. Let me just keep going through my slides. So Rainscapes, they can do now virtual site assessments. They can help you plan projects and design projects, and they can give you guidance on who can help you carry out these installations. They offer, one really nice thing is that they offer a property tax rebate program, and also, what am I saying? Not also. The rebates can go up to $7,500 per parcel, and that means that in your house, $7,500 for the lifetime of the house, so that if someone lived there before and they got a rebate, then you're done. But for any specific plot of land, it's $7,500 rebate. So here's an overview of what Somerset has done. There was some years ago, there was like in the around 2014 or something, they had a kind of project where they were trying to get Somerset, how can I say this? They were trying to, they especially focused on Somerset and asked people to try to do a lot of site assessments and get people to do a lot of projects. So over 50 houses, that's out of 400, have worked with Rainscapes. 24 households completed a site assessment only, and then 29 households actually installed a project after a site assessment. So as a result of Rainscapes, there were 9 rain gardens, 27 conservation landscapes, and we're going to talk about what these are, 13 homes with permeable pavers, and then a few dry wells and rain barrels. So let me show a map. This map can be found on the Rainscapes website, which I will give you at the end of this presentation, of the actual installations in Somerset. And it shows very nicely, I mean, you can actually figure out whose house it is. Like for example, up here, there's a conservation landscape on Cumberland, and it shows you exactly where the projects have been. So I'm going to talk about what these things are. So we're going to start with rain gardens. Here's a picture of a rain garden. The rain garden is in the center of the photo behind the curved berm. It's not in the front, but it's this part in the back. And here's a closer up picture of that rain garden with some rain, kind of collecting the rain, which is kind of nice. I'm going to hope to get one more picture of a rain garden. So a rain garden is, what is a rain garden? It is a garden designed to intercept, store, and soak in rainwater. And the average rain garden is about 225 square feet, which is about, if you think about it, about 15 by 15. So they're not too big. The average cost, so this gives you the average cost and some of the range of costs and the rebate. So the average cost, if you had a 225 square foot rain garden, would be $47.25. And your rebate might be $22.50, so it's $10 per square foot. I mean, the costs obviously can vary a lot, but this just gives you an idea of how much it might cost to put in one of these. So your final cost might be about $2,500 if you did an average size rain garden. It also would depend on which plants you put in there. Here are some comments from people in Somerset who've actually gotten a rain garden. Given the cost of landscaping and how much the appearance of our yard has been enhanced, we have no regrets about making the expenditure and helping reduce the runoff to Little Falls. Here's another one. Yes, my project achieved what I had hoped for. Beautiful backyard, which helps absorb water that might otherwise run down to Uppingham. Okay, I want to talk now about conservation landscapes. These are a little different than rain gardens. Here's one example of a conservation landscape, which is well filled in the middle of a summer. Here's one I took this picture today, in fact, so it's not quite as filled in, it's kind of still early in the spring. A conservation landscape is a garden designed to slow down and soak up rain using native plants, but it's not as specialized as a rain garden. Conservation landscapes tend to be a lot bigger than rain gardens. They're usually about 30 by 30. And the average cost is, it's more because it's a bigger installation, but it's $8,600. And the average rebate might be $49.50. So again, this just gives you some idea of what it might cost to get this done. Here's one comment. I am very happy with the project. I think it looks good and is good for the environment. Of course, it doesn't look like a formal garden. It's a bit more wild looking. Over time, some plants have had to be changed after seeing how they did in the location. And I might add another quote on that one. Okay, so now permeable pavers are the third thing we're going to talk about. Here's a picture of permeable pavers. I had another driveway, but then I realized it was done by the same company. It was exactly the same. So, oh, here it is. I'll probably take out one of these. Same company. They refer to each other, those two households. Permeable pavement is pavement that is designed to intercept and store rainwater. So the average installation is 475 square feet, which is about 19 by 25. And we're talking about driveways here, although it can also be for a walkway or a patio or anything. These are very costly because it's like pavement. And so the average cost is almost $16,000. The cost range could be from $9,500 to, for that size would be from $9,500 to $24,000 almost. And the rebate is $6,650. To compare, we did a little bit of a comparison. If you were going to install a concrete driveway, it might cost between $8 and $18 a square foot, which is the permeable pavers are $20 to $50 a square foot. So a similar driveway might cost $3,800 to $8,550. So it is less expensive, but this is something that if you were going to put in a driveway and you did this instead, you'd get this rebate of $6,650. Whoops, I can't do that, sorry. So I was trying to highlight this, but it doesn't work. So anyway, the costs are a little more comparable when you consider the rebate, but just to give you some idea, this is something that you might not do unless you needed to replace your driveway because it's quite expensive. Here are some comments about permeable pavement. The water sinks right down. Our permeable driveway manages the water from the front of our house and prevents water from flowing from our yard into our neighbors. It helps with our basement too. And super fun to see all the water just disappear into the driveway. And then someone else said, I was really pleased with the outcome and frankly shocked by the size of the subsidy. So that's a good recommendation. I have here a slide that shows, kind of summarizes some of the costs for the different projects. And this also includes a cistern and rain barrels. So I'm not going to go through this slide, but the slides are going to be available later. So if you want to look at this, you'll have the information here. Further resources, the Rainscapes website is, well, this is it. It has a lot of information about getting started with the project, about how it works, about applying for them to evaluate your yard. It's all there. And if you want a copy of these slides, just contact me or Matt. Maybe I don't need to say that. And then we talked about future plans. We're going to continue to collect available information on projects that can assist individual property owners to control stormwater runoff on their properties. And we're going to put that in the final report. But this was one of the things that we thought was really going to be useful for people to use.
Great. Thank you. And what's the time on that?
And time, it is, oh, hold on. 9 minutes and 45 seconds.
Second place, very good. Julie G's the woman to beat.
I have one question because one thing I noted in the survey is an awful lot of people installed things and then we're not spending anything on maintenance. And do you have any, I mean, I don't want to discourage people from putting these things in, but at the same time, people need to maintain rain gardens. And I even heard that the permeable pavers do require some maintenance over time, I think. So I'm just.
You know, that's a good point, Ellen. I didn't forget, but we didn't think about putting that in the slides, but there is some maintenance involved.
Just from experience of having one, it's pretty much the same maintenance, like yard maintenance, except that you just got to make, maybe clean the leaves out a little bit more and, just make sure that if you have something coming into the rain garden, like a pipe that brings it in or something, that it's not clogged. But I don't think there's like a lot of maintenance involved other than regular garden, just.
Well, I don't know, like permeable pavers, do they have to be cleaned or something? I mean, cleared out of debris, I don't really know.
I was talking to the Cathans and they mentioned something and I wasn't quite clear, but they were talking about things that you have to keep clear. So
okay,
maybe just put in the future plans part that we will provide some more information about maintenance.
Okay.
I agree.
And
that
was very helpful.
I was going to say, I thought that was terrific. The only suggestion I might make is to, there will be people who are listening to this who really might benefit from a little kind of setting the stage, and just say that there are, a range of technologies and techniques and systems and that people use to mitigate rainwater runoff, and including keeping it, especially to try and keep the rainwater on the property. And a lot of these are tried and tested, and they work, and and then maybe just kind of setting the stage a little bit that way.
I was trying to do that, but I didn't quite do it enough. So thank you. I'm writing this down.
I know you're going to hit it out of the park. It is the forum.
I have one other question. So just for clarification, does Rainscapes do the a lot of people I've talked to have done backyard bounty. So
they recommend, if you want people to recommend, they have a list now, which is new, of people that have been gone through either training that they've approved of, that they say have gone through training to install and do these. They have a list, but they don't do any installation or anything themselves.
That may be good to say.
They don't really do planning. They will help you, tell you how to draw a plan or something, or if you want referral to someone that will do it. But they don't do any hands-on.
Okay, that might be helpful to say so that people understand the process of how you actually get it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's fine. And question, were those all Somerset, all the different gardens and driveways and everything? So you may want to say that. I mean, it's fantastic to know, like, wow, that's all in our neighborhood. I wasn't sure. Yeah.
I thought that was obvious, but I didn't want to say who it was, but.
No. I don't mean that. Just to say these are all, every photo you'll see is from, a Somerset case, which is cool, right? So.
Okay. Great. That was great. So as I look at the time, the survey was roughly 25 minutes, and we obviously can probably cut that a little. The tree was 19, right? The tree study, which that should be cut quite a bit, right? Because there was a lot of, we don't know what we're including and all that kind of stuff. So what reasonably, if we counted 19 minutes, what do you think you can get it down to 10?
Yeah, no, I mean, just if we decide what it should be, we'll do that, right, Brian? Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, if we are only allowed, I think there should be, just say clearly how much time we have for presentation, we'll get it down, and then how much time for Q&A, and we'll limit it to that. I mean, whatever, it has to fit with the overall program, right? So, yeah.
Put you down, we can always bump it up. Let's say 10 minutes for right now, we can always bump it up. And
Q&A, thank you.
And then Julie's was very
day 5. I think
G.
I'm gonna put you down as 5.
Yeah.
So are we 10, Ellen, for the talking?
I just want to add it up, and then we can.
Oh, sure, perfect. Okay, cool.
I think Julie Greenberg can get it down to 3. Come on, Julie.
2.5. Come on.
Maya's was 10, right?
Yeah.
Julie is really good.
Yeah.
So we're right now at 25, 35, 40. We're at 50 minutes with no questions, right? Although some of us had questions. The survey, we had quite a few questions. So, and then the reason I was asking that, I have 2 people who will do like a little testimony thing. One is Kathy Picard. I don't have what she's going to say yet, but she's basically installed everything and has pretty strong feelings about things that worked and things that didn't work, and she would do differently, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I told her to kind of keep it to 5 minutes or so. And then I think it goes a lot with the last presentation. I was, when I was struck by one house where they didn't seem to have terrible problems, but they decided to put in a rain garden. And I know the person, I didn't know that they had done this, but I called them, and, she was talking about how, they just had a backyard that increasingly was getting wet and not being used, and mosquitoes, and their kids had grown up. And so they're kind of like, we don't need grass anymore. What can we do? And they installed it, and this just had a really positive experience. They almost did their whole backyard, got rid of all the grass, and it was just done like a year ago, but they said it's beautiful, and time will tell how effective it is, but so far they were very happy with it. So I thought that might be a good person who wasn't, you know, I don't know that any rain garden is going to solve the problem when you were getting a river through your yard. But if a lot of people did it, it could help. You know, it's I think the answer to a lot of these problems is cumulative, do a lot of things. So I have Maura Vanderzon said that she would be happy to spend a few minutes and talk about her experience.
Good. So is Kathy's more of a just, you know, the troubles of stormwater, or because I thought we were doing some troubles and then some solutions, right? Yeah,
because I think Kathy has, and I think her bottom line is going to be is that it's got to be a community. Well, I have done all these things and I still haven't solved my problem. I've helped my problem, but I'm basically affected by everybody up the hill. And what, you know, different changes are just going to change the path of the water. Like, you know, one thing changes something else. And also specifically, like she did rain barrel and she said she had it taken out. We had a couple people said the rain barrels didn't work at all. And that was the least effective, but then some things she did were effective. So, so she's more kind of like the bigger example of.
You're talking about Kathy?
Lived here for a long time and tried.
Yeah, that was her rain garden. That was Kathy's rain garden.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In the picture, yeah.
So I did not get anybody else, and I think we're kind of tight on time. So I was just gonna say.
I mean, I think Kate Julie. I don't know if you don't need someone, that's fine. But I know she felt strongly if you want a nightmare scenario of stormwater, she can give you a recount. She can, or you know, speak. But I don't know if you need that or not. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think. I don't think we want to go.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was kind of thinking of things that might be a little more, you know,
positive.
Yeah, right. We don't want everything. We're not Pollyanna here, but we're
not the Debbie Downer scenario.
So anyway, so we have 50 minutes, and then if we add a testimony, that's 60 without questions. And let's say, you know, we allow 30 minutes for, you know, between the different presentations, and we'll try and have a set amount of time for each one. I don't know if you think there's certain ones that they're going to have more questions or not. I think they'll have a lot of questions on the rain garden, frankly.
I think the survey may have questions, actually.
Right.
I mean, I think there could be questions. I think we're not going to know. I would leave question chunks, you know, specific times allocated for all of them, because people could be interested in any of this stuff, honestly.
I think the survey too. Yeah, but
all of them. I mean, I think people, you know, we want to give them some chance for each of them, I believe. Yeah.
Like, we don't want to use all the surveys first, and we don't want to use, you know, 30.
Yeah. I mean, 5 each. I don't know, 5 each.
On X amount of time. I mean, you decide, and then we'll have someone be the bad guy that said, you know, we've run out of time.
Ed Schwartz, you're nominated.
And then say, and then we're going to be, if you can give me an answer of where
this was your audition,
where you can
nominate it. I second.
I'm a big
all in favor.
That's fine.
I'm going to wear my mask and sunglasses.
Okay, so
but just as long as we have a place that we can say, if you want more information, and we'll try to provide it if you email blah blah blah.
Yeah. Do we? Yeah. Is there an email for the committee, or do they just write to Matt and he forwards it to Ellen, or I have no idea?
No, I don't know that I can handle anybody.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, so I don't know where to put.
I'm happy to check out the. I mean, is there like a? I know there's a stormwater email. I mean, yeah. Stormwater email questions, blah, blah, and I can monitor it the next couple of days, you know.
That could be good. Because I mean, I said that people could contact me, but that makes no sense. There should just be one central place.
I need to set up some kind of stormwater something committee.
Can we put it on the website, on the town website?
No, remember in the beginning, we didn't have personal emails. Matt had set up some kind of story.
No, but that's just for us to get, that's almost a group email. That's just a group for us, I think, isn't it?
But maybe he could set up one that people could email, and then I could monitor, or somebody could monitor.
Maybe we had something on the town website.
That's what I'm saying. On the town website, we can
Stormwater at townofsomerset.com or something.
I would not ask for anything from Matt or on the website. It's just not going to happen. So.
I know, I've been underwhelmed. Yeah.
Why don't we just set up a Gmail that says Somerset Stormwater at gmail.com, and
sounds great.
We can maybe
Who's going to
I
monitor
can
that?
monitor it.
All right, Jan. I nominate
I'll
Jan.
monitor it.
I second Jan.
Oh, this is a question for Ellen. This is a question for Ed. Ed's going to call this person back.
Okay, so Jan is going to monitor a Gmail account.
SomersetStormwater.com, right? At gmail.com, sorry.
And Ed's going.
It's easy. It's easy to set up a password, and you can even share the password. We could all.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
I think that everybody. I'll set it up. Okay.
Yeah. You can actually have automatic forwarding to people. They'll only do it if people want it. So
It's going to be the question moderator, right?
I don't think what the password should be.
Stormwater.
I know. Waivers.
Waivers.
No waivers.
No waivers.
No waivers. New rules.
Yeah.
So plan is to have one slide deck, right? And then go through it in the order.
So we need a slide, someone whose only job, maybe, I don't know if it can be Matt or something, but whose only job is to run it. And as we say, next slide, please, that single person does that for each of us.
Right.
And if that can be Matt, that would be preferred.
Yeah.
Or somebody other, it can't be any of us because we might be fielding questions and et cetera.
Yes, I'll put it together, but that Matt can be the slide master.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we should assign who's monitoring the chat for each question period.
We need to know that Matt's going to be on the entire call too, because.
Can he be? I mean,
I don't know. I'm just saying he can't give him an assignment and then he.
We should need to check with him, right?
Yeah.
Well, when I get the slides together, I will specifically say, Matt, here's a slide deck. Will you be there for the whole presentation?
Right. Are you doing it in PowerPoint or Google Slides?
It doesn't matter. Is there any reason?
PowerPoint would be, I don't know how to make it into Google Slides.
That's fine. We were just doing it because it was easy. It was easier to share it while we were working together. That's all.
I just feel like PowerPoint's better.
Okay,
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
And then, Ellen, I think you should assign who is going to do the monitoring of the chat and who is.
I already did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that was Ed.
Oh, I'm not going to monitor. You mean?
No, Ed's going to monitor.
No, Ed is just timekeeper. That's actually a different function. Just the timekeeper is
sergeant at arms.
because he has a law degree, so he gets to be timekeeper.
He's going to go through the questions and say, we have a question here. And
he can't do that if he's also keeping track of time, because the question has a time for him to.
I could do that. I can monitor. Well, I can monitor the questions. Well, I think I can monitor the questions as they're coming in. Yeah.
Okay.
We all know the time that we're supposed to come in on, right? We all.
Yeah, but like when I'm talking, I don't know. To me, I'll time it, but it's helpful if someone says you have 2 minutes left or something. I mean, I don't know. Whenever I've done panels, there's always someone that that's all they do is say like
a time thing and watch it. Hearing.
That does work too.
And what about the question period? Then who's going to monitor how, like, that we only do whatever 5 minutes per chunk of questions?
I can monitor that if you tell me how to come in and cut them off.
Ed was doing that. So now you're doing that?
Oh, no. Okay.
So I'm going to cut people off.
Okay, I'm not going to worry about it.
So I can come in and say we have, time for one more brief question, or I'm afraid we're out of time, whatever it is, and let's move on to.
You're not even afraid, right?
No.
Sorry, not sorry.
It's almost like being a judge. It's like a privilege.
Okay, you've got a promotion.
Yeah.
Okay if we ask people to put their questions while we're talking and writing?
Yes.
In the chat.
Yes, that's very common and it's very helpful. Yeah. And then those people go first, and only if theirs all get answered and there's time, do the verbal questions because it's first come, first serve, right? First in, first out.
And they have to raise their hand.
I think there has to be a qualitative element to this whole thing.
You mean picking and choosing questions?
Having a person who has judgment is that they will, because you don't want 3 questions asked, or somebody who's just focused on their own property and some little thing. And you're looking for questions that hopefully will, are universal in most cases and aren't just my, neighbors downstairs that is toward my yard.
Ed's the man. right?
Or there might be questions on the same topic or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you can batch them. Yeah, batch them. Batch them, match them. Yeah.
Could there be little old ladies who don't know how to write the question in, but they're on the Zoom? I don't know.
And little old men too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people are pretty savvy by now. I think it's a chat. The chat is a.
I mean, I don't know. Whenever I've been on these things, people have the option to either write it or say it. So, I mean,
I'm just saying I don't want to make them write it because I
agree. Right. Yeah. If someone just can't deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, maybe we can explain at the beginning that there's a chat function and all you have to do is push it and type your question. And then,
to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. We will pick questions.
Thanks, Kumar.
And then we'll answer them as many as we can. And perhaps we can, you know, later try and figure out a way to answer the other.
Yeah, and I think that since we have the Gmail. Oh, okay, yeah. Bye, Brian. We'll be in touch. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. But I mean, also, if we run out of time, there you can say if you have further questions, you know, if you're really burning questions, because we don't want every other. Yeah, then, you know, write to, you know, our Gmails.
Write to Ed.
All right.
No, write to Jan.
Yeah.
Jan the non-man.
Yeah, I'll set up the Gmail account and send it around. I mean, yeah.
So do you want me monitoring the questions and reading them? What?
Yeah.
How do you want to work this?
Yeah, read them.
Yeah, okay.
The people answering shouldn't have to field or read. They just answer, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm fine screening them.
Yeah. So you screen and you read.
And judge, yeah.
Judge.
And
judge the judge. No, I mean, like Ellen said, you know, batch them and, you know, some are, you know, you don't have to do them all, yeah.
Say what we always want to say. We talked about that already. Why are you bringing that up again?
Didn't you listen?
That goes over well.
Wait, Kumar just said we're a model committee, so we can't blow it now, guys.
Instead of biting one's tongue all the time.
Yeah. No, patience. I mean, and also, you know, I would say we've been immersed in this stuff and thinking about it. And I know so much more and I've learned a ton. But, you know, if I hadn't been part of all this to hear all this at once, it's a lot of information, which is fantastic. So see, people could be forgiven for asking something that was covered, honestly.
No, I'm just meetings in general.
Yeah.
Ellen, I think there should be a couple minutes of context setting, sort of what we thought our purpose tonight is and why. And this is only the beginning. We're just gathering information, but we're also going to provide, you know, we wanted to share it with you, but more analysis and recommendations are coming, because otherwise I don't want them to feel like, okay, so what am I supposed to do with this?
Right. Or this is it. Yeah.
That's a
and
great
Ellen,
idea.
maybe also, Ellen, I would actually say the mandate of the committee, like, I can't even remember what it is myself, but
this is our first report.
Right. Yeah. But you know what our purpose was, because, you know, our purpose isn't it may not be obvious. Like there's a lot of ways one could deal with stormwater, right? So
I think it's also important that people understand the context of where we are in the whole process. We're at the beginning of the process. We're not at the end of the process.
Yeah.
We're gathering information. We're trying to educate ourselves. We're trying to look for experts who can help us. The long-term goal of coming up with recommendations for the town. So,
and also I think, I mean, and I know we discussed this, but I think it's actually worth saying is that, you know, as you said in the beginning, but a lot of what we're presenting is some of our factual findings, so that, you know, in case people don't think it's going to be all opinions and solutions, it's really factually based, you know, information some of the information we've collected to date. So, yeah, maybe that'll be less inflammatory. So, and is this 1.5 hours or how long is it, Ellen?
I think our plan was 1.5 from.
Okay.
It's about right.
So maybe even say at the beginning what time we wrap, just because, I mean, people don't always know. And I know some things go on forever and ever, like town council meetings. So anyway.
And if we tell them the slide deck will be available, then if they have to put kids to bed at 8:30, they'll know they can get the rest. So it's always good to allow them to check.
That's right. Yeah.
Is this going to be taped?
Or if they're falling asleep at 8:30.
Yeah. Is this taped like they do for some other meetings?
It should be taped.
Recording. Yeah.
Everything now is being recorded.
So
and does that mean people have access, Ellen, automatically? Like they have the right to ask for it, or how does that even work? I don't even know.
There's a Somerset YouTube channel.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Who knew?
Yeah.
No, I don't. That puts everything up on it in a sort of erratic, but it's all there. It's,
wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
All the tree reports are on there. You just didn't know it.
Yeah, no, there, no.
Oh, oh, that's where all my tree data is. Okay, why did you tell me? Right?
All right, guys, it's great. I think it's going to be really good.
So just to be clear, so we get 10. So back to Brian and me. We land on 10 for our talking and not where? Would you?
Let me know if that's not enough.
You said 10. That's fine. And then five questions or something.
Sorry.
Is it 5 questions? 10 for talking and 5 for questions.
Well, let's see.
No?
Yeah, maybe we can figure out how much time we should allot for the questions, or Ellen, I can work with you afterwards if
just to tell us beforehand. That would help.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to know where most of the questions are going to come from. I'm thinking because the survey is first, that's going to get a lot of questions. But I also think,
why don't we just divvy up the same amount per thing, and then if there's not enough time, then they'll follow up with a Gmail or recording or whatever. So, I mean, that's what I would do. I wouldn't try to figure it out personally, but
50. Well, we really should only have like 50 minutes of solid presentation time. So even allowing for 10-minute variants, it still gives us 30 minutes for questions, and I'm sure we'll need it.
So and there's 6 presentations, right? Are there 6 presentations?
It's 4 presentations.
Yeah.
Oh, 4. Okay.
No, there's 5.
5.
Okay.
No, 4. Yeah, 4 presentations. Yeah, 4.
4. Yeah.
And they should total like 50 minutes. But after the introduction and maybe start a couple minutes late, we should have 30 minutes for Q&A, which is good.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I'm impressed with how you guys pulled everything together.
I thought the presentations were fantastic.
I would be interested if I didn't know about it.
Ryan is the chart master.
All right.
He's Mr. Pie Chart. He gets credit.
Oh, should we send out another email on the unofficial list?
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
I'll send out an email to the committee, but Julie had a very good idea about us trying to boost attendance to this. And so I know that she's making a flyer to go put in people's doors, but I think what would be helpful is if everybody in the committee talked it up and tried to get, 5 people to come.
Yeah, here's my thinking now that we have no one on the town council on the call anymore. There is going to be $1 million for the town. And
it's a recorded session, just
they're not going to listen. There are 2 tranches and separated by year. And if we want to make a really strong case for getting a good chair, we want to have a lot of people at the town forum. That's what, between the survey results, if we get a big crowd, if we get 30 people, that's going to make a difference. And we should be able to get 30 people on this. And so between us and the town council and the 30 people, it's going to look like a good turnout. And that's what we need to make the case that we need. This money should go towards
Stormwater,
green and gray infrastructure, which is really what the money was intended for anyway. It's not as if we are trying to glom onto money that the federal government did not intend for this purpose. That's really right there. There are 3 criteria, and this is one of them. So,
can I make a suggestion? So, my husband's on a different committee, and they just had a forum for the diversity inclusion. But anyway, what they did is, obviously they had people writing on the listserv and then officially, but also, sort of to your point, Julie, some of them did separate listservs, and then one of them also put on the general, whatever town listserv are, that's not the town listserv. So they kind of had various people doing various things. And I think that kind of helped. So, I could, if you want, Ellen, it's up to you. If you want to put on the listserv, or I could put it, whatever, if you want different things, but it's up to you.
Why don't you go ahead and put something on the listserv? I think what I'm going to do is send an email to the committee to ask people to do a variety of things. But I think, if you just picked 10 or 15 people that that you're in, pretty regular communication with in the town, and just told them about it, say it's really important. I know, you care about this issue, please come to our virtual, town forum and hear about the survey results or how to plant a rain garden or whatever kind of thing.
Right, and it'll have the agenda of the topics on it on the announcement. Do we have that on it or not?
Yeah,
it was on the agenda for this meeting. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So, but that'll be on whatever we officially announced it. Okay.
It has it up a little. So,
yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to suggest that here's this assignment, and don't forget it, people, write it down. Jazz up the name of your presentation.
Okay.
So it's not tree study. It's
not tree study that puts you to sleep. Yeah, I don't know.
It's something. Try and come up with something catchier.
That's I can do. I'll do that. Yeah.
Arboreal analysis.
Aya, did you hear that?
Sorry, I had to go away for a second. What was it?
Okay, so who is going to post it on the listserv? You're going to, Julie? Okay, so send to Julie a jazzier version of the titles of what you're presenting. For instance, Haya, you have Rainscapes Analysis. Call it something else.
Yeah, that's not a good title. Okay. No offense.
Got a lot of analysis. Yeah, we had tree analysis. That's pretty sexy.
Send it to Julie so she can post something hopefully Friday.
All right.
We can also get, send me a copy as well. And then I've got, oh geez, I got.
Is it next Thursday? When is it actually? I don't even know.
Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Right, perfect. Yeah. Okay.
And we've got, so do this tomorrow, folks. And then I've got to get something but I'm going to give it to Julie Greenberg because she's very effective to send to Matt the agenda.
Oh, wait, are you the one who can are you the Matt whisperer? I need to know this.
There's him.
I don't want to push this, so.
A lot of whispering.
Is he still doing a Friday newsletter?
He does a Friday town announcement.
So that's important. Yeah.
I don't see that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't get it either. I don't know why.
Oh, I get it. That's weird. It might be in your spam. Huh, that's weird.
No, I've checked everywhere.
The Friday class, Julie, which Julie Greenberg's going to do. Julie Abrams is going to do the listserv. And then we're all
do it sort of a couple times, like judiciously spaced. Yeah.
Okay, so whatever you, whatever titles you get, Julie, or what I will want to send to
of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, and then I will send an email out to the committee asking them to invite friends and neighbors to attend and so send me a copy of the catchy highlights.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it 7:30 to 9 or 7 to 8:30? I forgot.
7:30 to 9.
7:30 to 9. Okay.
7:30 to 9. My guess is it might be.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Everybody's got their assignments. Thank you so much. I think this was great.
Thanks, Ellen. Thanks
bye,
for
everybody.
Bye. Have a good evening. Take care.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Now the rest of the night off. Bye.
Yeah.